Hello sewing lovers, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pilumi of Sewphilia Studios, and in today's video I'm going to walk you through the steps and instructions on how to sew the view A of the Azania dress. So the view A of the Azania pattern is a maxi dress, what I'm wearing today, with the necktie and the collar and the puffy cuff sleeves and the side slit as well. So in subsequent videos I will show you how to make the different versions of the different views of the Azania pattern, so stay tuned for that by subscribing to the channel, like this video, share this video, and if you do make the Azania dress, do share with me by tagging us on Instagram at Sewphilia_studios, and I'd really love to see you mixing different colors, different fabrics. I'm really excited to see what you make. So without further ado, let's get sewing. Enjoy. Here are the materials you need. You need the Azania pattern printed out. You need pins and pattern weights, fabric scissors and paper scissors, measuring tape, a ballpoint or jersey needle, tailor's chalk or fabric marker, matching thread, and your knit fabric of choice. I am using brushed cotton, which has a one-way stretch. It's medium weight and has a bit of structure to it. To get started sewing, cut out the borders from the pattern, tip the patterns together, and cut out your desired size. Make sure to check the size chart and the finished garment measurements to know which size to cut. Or if you want to save the integrity of the pattern and save the paper, you can trace out the size you want on tracing paper. I will make a video on how to print and tape PDF patterns together accurately. Next, place the pattern on your fabric using the pattern layout in the sewing manual as a guide. Make sure you consider the stretch direction of your fabric as well. Prepare the fabric pieces by pinning the pattern on the paper and cutting out the pieces as indicated. The pattern already has half an inch seam allowance included all around, so you do not need to trace extra seam allowance on the fabric. Also, do not forget to mark out the notches where indicated, and detailed instructions will be on the sewing manual, so do make sure that you read everything before cutting your fabric. Before you start sewing, make sure to change the needle to a ballpoint or jersey needle. It has a blunt end and will not poke holes to your fabric. It is also recommended to use a zigzag stitch on knit fabrics to accommodate the stretch of the knit fabric, because straight stitches can break when they stretch, so zigzag is better to accommodate the stretch. So test out your zigzag stitch to find the perfect length and tension for your fabric. Begin your dress by placing the two back pieces right side together. Pin along the length of center back. Using a zigzag stitch, stitch up the center back seam using a half an inch seam allowance. Do not forget to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the fabric, even though you're using a zigzag stitch. Also, as you sew, do not stretch the fabric, simply guide it through the sewing machine. After sewing, press the seam open. It's hard to press the seam open actually, so you can just press it to the side. With right sides together, align the back and front pieces at the shoulder seam. Pin at the shoulder and stitch in place using a zigzag stitch at half an inch seam allowance as well. Do this for both shoulders and press the seam open after sewing. With the right sides together, align the front and the back pieces at the side seam. You will not sew all the way to the hem. If you forgot to mark where the seam stops and where the slit starts, place your pattern on the fabric and mark the slit point with a chalk or a pin. Sew the side seam with a zigzag stitch at 1/2 inch seam allowance as you've been doing so far, but stop at the mark indicating the beginning of the slit, and remember to back stitch. After sewing the side seams, press the seam and continue pressing so that the unsewn part close to the hem is pressed inward on both sides. Be sure to maintain the consistent seam allowance all the way down to the end of the slit. After pressing, pin each side of the seam allowance in place around the area of the slits. Mark 0.5 inch up from where the slit starts. Either sides of the opening will be top stitched as well as the top that you just marked. Starting at the hem, top stitch or sew up one side of the slit as close to the edge as possible, and once you've reached the first corner at the top, pivot and stitch across the top of the slit. Then pivot at the second corner at the top of the slit, and then continue down the other side of the slit, maintaining a consistent seam allowance that matches the first side. The hem of the garment can now be sewn normally. Since many knits do not fray, hemming is usually not required, but you can opt for a single rolled hem by folding up the fabric once by 1 inch and top stitching in place. Sewing the collar and neckline is actually very easy. The first thing to do is unfold the collar piece that was cut on the fold as well as the tie piece. Place one necktie piece on one end of the collar, right sides together by matching the notches and pinning. Mark 1/2 inch at the top and at the bottom of this piece, and then sew together with a zigzag stitch, starting 0.5 inches from the top and stopping at the 0.5 inch mark at the bottom. Afterwards, fold the necktie part only in half lengthwise and pin along the edges. Sew with a straight stitch as indicated, and then stop at the 0.5 inch opening. Trim the seam allowance and tips of the necktie, leaving the understitched collar part untrimmed. Cutting away the corners will give you a better finish when you turn the ties to the right side. Turn both tie pieces right side out and by passing it through the collar piece and pressing. The 0.5 inch seam allowance left on the collar should be outside. Place the collar inside the dress, matching the center of the collar to the center front of the dress, and pin to the neckline right sides together. Then pin the ends of the collar to the center back. The ends of the collar should meet at the center back seam. You can overlap this part a little bit. Then pin the rest of the collar to the neckline and sew around the neckline with a zigzag stitch at 0.5 inch seam allowance. Create each of the lower sleeves by folding them in half right sides together. Pin along the V-shaped edge and sew with a zigzag stitch to create a long tube. Clip the midpoint of the V shape to remove excess fabric and turn the cuff's right sides out with the wrong sides together, and then press the cuff to lay the seam flat. Fold the sleeves widthwise, pin and sew up the inseam with a zigzag stitch, add 0.5 seam allowance, and then press the seam as usual. And then gather the bottom of each sleeve to fit the cuff. You can gather by sewing long distance stitch with your sewing machine, but because this is a rather short hem, I decided to hand sew running stitches at 1/2 inch seam allowance and then gather this until it fits the cuff. Place the cuff inside the sleeves, making sure the right sides are together, and pin the gathered edge along the raw edge of the lower sleeve and sew with a zigzag stitch. The sleeve is not ready to be attached to the dress itself. To do this, place the sleeves inside the dress, ensuring the right sides are matching together as well, and then match up all the notches and the seams together. Pin the sleeve to the respective armhole of the dress. With a zigzag stitch, then sew the sleeve and the dress together. If you followed along with this video, congratulations, you have yourself a beautiful Azania dress. I love mine and I sewed it in a size 8, which gave me a fitted look. It's such a simple and elegant piece and can be worn with heels, sneakers, boots, and for extra warmth you can throw on a jacket or coat. I really hope that the sew along was helpful and inspiring for you. Sewing can be really empowering, and it's a fun and cool way to express yourself, and I just love sharing that with you guys. So I can't wait to do another sew along for you sewing lovers, and to see your mix as well. Until next time, happy sewing. Bye.